All right, fellas. I've got a little bit of a twist for you today from our normal interviews, where instead of just talking with one dude, typically around one focused subject, we're talking with Joseph Davis and his beautiful wife, Alana Bliss. And these two amazing souls have been together for 10 years. They are raising 5 children. Alana has been a certified permaculture designer for nearly 20 years. And Joseph is the founder of Dads Here Now, a program where he offers coaching calls and peer mentorship to help businessmen master fatherhood. Obviously, are a direct call to the work we're doing here and a reason that Joseph and I align so well. Together, Joseph and his wife are operating multiple businesses as partners. They are currently living on 50 acres in eastern Tennessee, where they're designing an eco-village. That is a community designed around sustainable multifamily neighborhoods and its intentional connection to nature. These two beautiful souls met in Costa Rica, where they lived on a regenerative land project and taught internships, workshops, and facilitated a volunteer program with people from around the world. I can tell you, after having dug into their lives a little bit, we have no shortage of things to talk about today. Getting focused might be our greatest challenge, but we shall meander and adventure into the conversation and into their love story, which is really cool. And when you get a chance to spend a couple minutes with them, their admiration for each other is obvious. So Joseph, Alana, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
To be a fun conversation here. Let's start with your love story. Tell us about Costa Rica, which, by the way, I keep hearing Costa Rica. I'm like, gotta go. Talk to me about how that was the birthplace of your now 10-year partnership.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to, Joseph?
Go for it.
So years ago, I've always wanted to do this intentional community projects. And so my ex-husband and I actually bought a school bus, converted it to run unused vegetable oil, and drove into the mystery, not really knowing where we were going. And I had 2 kids. So that was quite an adventure. And we ended up in Costa Rica, and we bought a farm down there, set up a permaculture education center and a volunteer program, and had been there for some years. I think 5 years, was it? 3, something
About
like that.
3.5 years.
Oh, was it 3.5? Thank you. He's better at those logistics than me. And so we had the volunteer program, and that's when Joseph came down with a crew of people. He had you were traveling with your girlfriend,
my ex-girlfriend, a dog, and 2 friends. We were a crew of young, bushy-tailed, ready to help out younger folks 10 years ago. So
little did he know he was entering the Black Widow spider web.
Nice.
Yeah. And we just clicked as friends and started working on the project. And I mean, I was married at the time, and we had at that point I had 3 kids. And so it was definitely, my ex-husband was very into like making sure that there was always this open marriage option for me. And I was kind of more hesitant to it. He was like, yeah, we can have an open marriage. We can be polyamorous, all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But then when Joseph came, we were just like hanging out one night doing dishes in the kitchen, when all of a sudden, like, it hit us like this deep realization that we just like fell in love. It was really surreal. And then, but we just were like, all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, there's something here that's deeper than anything I've ever felt before. And so the next day I was like, we were just kind of like, well, it is what it is. I'm going to go talk to Jason, my ex-husband. And so I went the next day and talked to him and said, hey, do you remember you wanted an open marriage? And he said, yeah. I said, well, I'm really, really feeling Joseph, and I was wondering if you'd be okay with that. And he's like, okay, well, I have some parameters that we have to establish. And so all right, well, let's go talk to him about it. And so then we had a meeting, the 3 of us.
Literally the next day.
The next day, yeah, the next morning.
Things are moving fast.
Yeah.
She forgot to mention that her and I had only known each other for about 2 weeks.
Yeah. And
It's
now
crazy.
I feel like we know how the story ends, but how about the middle part where, what was that like navigating that relationship, which ultimately ended up with you two being together and now this other person being your ex-husband. So how was that transition? How was that, I'm guessing and I'm projecting was it complicated? Was it simple? Was it with ease? Was it?
Well,
Certainly not simple, not with ease, and complicated might be an understatement.
Yeah.
But graceful, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
The transition itself, I think one of the best parts about it was, I mean, aside from there's other parts too, but one of the best parts, in my opinion, was how it was for the children, because they had already like grown to really love Joseph by the time the like major transition had occurred. So that for them, it was more like, oh, okay, this guy is amazing and we love him and we want to be, connected to him. And he didn't ever really like intentionally replace or anything. He was just there to support.
No, I never felt like I would replace. Yeah, something about having like a group of parents was always so inspiring and supportive, and it's an aspect of community that a lot of people had for generations ago. Like multi-parenting kind of, not necessarily in relationship, but yeah, like having a lot of mamas and papas and uncles and aunts around all the time, and it's a special feeling. So it really took a lot for us to communicate and keep communication threads or communication pathways open. One of my favorite things about what happened was, Jason was open for it, but he was really pressing that we got to know each other more on a not on a physical, intimacy kind of level. Like, hey, let's put that on the back burner. Let's discover who we are more. Of course, there's a lot of this, intimate magnetism potential here, but why jump into that right now? So as far as like physical relationship, that was like 6 months out.
Literally, he asked us to wait 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we really just got to know each other for who we were and for what we were taking on. At that point, we're all operating the farm together and just learning who we were, So I actually wasn't so sure. I had a family emergency come up in the States, and with my father figure, my closest father figure, going through his cancer and end of days. And I thought maybe I should go back, and maybe this is a crazy idea. And holy cow, like I've got a lot of committed to. Okay, I'm just going to leave for 10 days and fasted for 10 days. So I left and got to stay in this cool house on the hill close to San Jose with a friend. And I just every day just had some lemon juice, water with a little sprinkle of some salt, and just fasted for 7 days straight, and meditated every day and prayed every day, and kind of found myself cultivating different part of my spirit that I could connect to with my grandfather who was passing, and also really dive into what I wanted to do. And that's when I decided, yeah, I'm lucid. I'm not just entangled in whatever energies and relationships are happening at the farm. This is lucid. I'm going to go back, and I didn't talk to anyone from the farm for a few days, for that whole week.
Yeah.
And so that felt right, John. And I think that was the biggest part for me, was having clarity and really knowing what I was going to be getting myself into and what the potentials could be. So maybe we didn't mention, but Alana is 9 years older than me too. So she was 9 years older than me, married, had a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old. But I tell you what, the authenticity, John, it was the authenticity. All things rational, it made no sense, but it just felt completely right. And like with the relationships and the maturity we have with communication, it felt doable.
Mm-hmm.
So I went for it because I thought it felt right to me.
And
how's your relationship with Jason now? Did I hear his name right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go to where it is now, I want to say, give him credit too. Like he's never been a kid guy. He was always challenged by it. And when Joseph came in and was like really good for all of us, he could see how much we were thriving. And there was a point where I was like, because I mean, I was trying to juggle a polyamorous triad. I mean, and we all were, but I was like the bottom V, right? And because where I was connecting with the two of them, and
no pun intended.
It's a lot. And so I was like, talking to him, and I said, "Hey, Jason, tell me now, like, you're my husband. If this isn't going to work, we got to end it sooner than later because I'm starting to really feel, fall in love with him." And he said, "You know what? Like, he's better for you. He's better for
Mm.
you, and he's better for the kids. And I want to step out a little." And he had been really stressed around holding so much responsibility with the kids, with me, with the farm, with the volunteer program, with the employees, with living in the jungle, all these things. And he
He's a
needed some
super
space.
manifester.
Yeah, he and I together were incredible as far as making things happen and manifesting vision. And so, he stepped out and he went and took time and got into himself and left us at the farm with the kids and was able to really come into his own power. And I think that also Joseph and Jason became best friends, and we're best friends for most of our relationship.
Wow. And how about now?
It's we're coming back to a new place in our relationship. We've been through some hard times. What happened with COVID was hard during that 2 years or so. He ended up being in Costa Rica and feeling kind of stuck there. Meanwhile, Alana and I were living with all the kids here in Minnesota, so he was really like hands off and not really present with the parenting situation that we had been sharing previously in Minnesota. We actually all ended up moving here together, and he had his own place, and we were co-parenting his biological son Cedar, and
He has one
working
biological son.
together. He worked for our business a few times. I worked for his business because he's also an entrepreneur and had a balloon entertainment business in the Twin Cities, and just supported each other like without hesitation. But something about what happened through COVID and some of the isolation and just like the distance, and I think it caused some hard feelings, and it also caused just a lot of projections and just things came up, icky things, I guess. And it wasn't easy to work through that this past, like last year. It was just all boiling and intense and hard to navigate. So I'm not sure it's really ever going to be the same, but that's okay because we're finding ourselves in a new place in our lives. And we communicate. I'd say civil and cordial, and apologies have been said, and I love yous have been shared, and we're kind of recalibrating in a big way right now. Actually, it's actually kind of it's challenging almost to talk so much about it, because I just want to also really respect his place in the world and his public identity and his what he's doing, and make sure that we are in alignment and respectful of sharing this history.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What do you think was the glue, guys, that there's so much positive that in the end, look, regardless of the dark, right? Regardless of the friction, regardless of the challenges that emerge in any partnership, in any relationship, intimate or not, like it's bound to occur if you get that close to somebody, if you're sharing that much space, if you're sharing life, and you're truly in integrity with yourself, there has to be a rub at some point, right? There has to be. Mm-hmm. And you've navigated this to the point to where you're speaking, Joseph, right now with so much respect for this individual. And I really appreciate that. What do you think was the glue, the value, or the principle that allowed you for these last, let's call it 10 years, last decade, to have this type of progress in your relationship?
Like with between Alana and I, or with Jason?
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. I would even say between the three of you, because you're raising children together. There's a co-parenting situation going on. There's a blended family here. That there's a community element to this. So what is it that's allowed the three of you to navigate this space?
I feel like love, respect, communication. For me, so to clarify also, my first two boys, their father passed when I was pregnant with my second son. So, you know,
Passed away.
Passed away. So, you know, there was this huge death experience where I'm pregnant and I give birth at home. So I knew prenatal psychology. So I knew that if I didn't process that death experience, that I was going to have a harder birth. I still did have a hard birth, but I still gave birth at home, and it was a good experience. So not long after that, I met Jason. He kind of stepped up and took on supporting during that time. So I have a lot of respect and gratitude for him, because it was a time when I was in a lot of pain and needed that support, and he stepped into it and was really heartfelt and selfless in it. So he also was into like making sure that there was healing time and all this. So yeah, he's a good man. And I think that we respect him. And I think that's been one of the that's been one of the parts of the glue is we love and respect him. And we have dedicated ourselves to communication in spite of it. And like reason I bring up that with the past, with my the death of my ex, I don't even know, it's not an ex, I don't know, my partner with the first two kids, is because it, for me, made me realize how petty a lot of the things we fight about are, and how like it's just not worth it, because you never know when someone's last day is, and you never know like if you'll be able to have those goodbyes or that connection or whatever. You want to leave it on good terms as much as possible. So for me, that's been a big part of why I speak and the way I speak, and how I'm able to hold conflict the way I am.
Thanks, Alana.
Yeah. I feel like self-reflection is another part of it. And compassion through it all is like a lot of the times when people are attacking you or saying things that can cause pain, we just have to remember most of that's not even about you. You know, everyone has a different way of processing their pain. And I think like being able to separate yourself from someone's pain and what they're going through and their stress and their intensity, not always easy. I'm pretty empathic, but I feel like I've been able to grow tremendously the past few years into that. Like, this is me, that's you. I love you, I care about you, and I don't have to be in that pain with you. You know, and when I'm not in that pain with you, I can actually help navigate us somewhere else, right? I think like self-reflection, communication, compassion.
You know, I think this is a great place for us to transition a little to talk about the community element of what you're doing. I love this idea of an eco village, because my suspicion is that a lot of what we're talking about is at its core the nucleus of what allows an eco village to thrive. I think when we talk about love, respect, and communication, that can not only apply to the humans in our life, but to the land that we're connected to, right? To nature around us, like how, and when we really get deep into it, what's different between all of that? Nothing, right? Because we are all one. We are all connected energetically to the land, to other humans. So this is one conversation, right? We're having one conversation, although the characters or circumstances or environment might change in the dialogue. The conversation is rooted in an energy flowing together, right? And so on that note, maybe one of you could speak to the heart around the eco village, because I think there's a lot in that for people that, you know, somebody's listening to this and they're going, you know, they might pause for a second and go, eco village, I'm not going to create an eco village. I don't think I'm going to move to one. So maybe I'm not in this conversation. But I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I think that this is a conversation about all of us. I think this is a conversation about every neighborhood, every city, right? It's a conversation about how we co-create together with nature and with people. And so I love this concept, you know, sustainable multifamily neighborhoods. Talk to us about it. Where are you in the process? What are you dreaming about? What challenges might you be facing? So big question. You could take it many places, but what's true for you right now in that space?
But Alana, before you answer that, because you're going to be great at answering that, I just think, John, I just want to give you some recognition on how well you articulated all that. It's beautiful. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah. So over the course of wanting to live in intentional communities for now 20 some years, I learned that the most important part is the people, because you can do it anywhere. You can build community anywhere. You can get a group of people and move to any climate on the planet, and it can work. The problem is the people, because if you haven't done your work, if you haven't figured out your invisible structures, your social design, then you're going to have conflict. You're going to have issues. You're going to have power struggles. You'll probably get those things anyway, but at least you've worked out the way that you deal with it. So, we spent the last year and a half working on our social design and how are we going to own the community legally? What are agreements? Before we even got into any of that, we talked about what are your red lights? What are the things you will not live with? And what are the things that you're kind of okay with living with, like your yellow lights? And we talked about what are the things that inspire you. So we did the red light, yellow light, green light exercise. And some people left the group because they saw that their the red lights that most of us shared weren't in alignment with them. And it was a graceful transition for the most part. People leaving, they just realized that maybe we're going to be better off building with other people. As we and then we did a culture code where we hired someone who builds culture codes for corporations, and found our guiding principles, the foundation. Because a lot of communities that thrive, there's a lot that fail, 90% fail. And the ones that thrive and last the longest often are established. They've got their book of rules, so to speak, their moral, behavioral things. And so we had to establish
their ethical code of conduct, basically, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, so we had to establish ours through our 10 guiding principles, and then we had to define those, and we had to agree on the verbiage and all that. And then we had to decide how is it going to be owned, what kind of legal structure, what kind of governing structure. So all these things went into a lot
Sounds easy, Alana.
So easy.
Sounds so easy.
John, we've met once a week consistently for 19 months, with the exception of a few holidays, for 2 to 3 hours once a week with the same group of 10 adults. And now we have about 15 adults?
I think 14, 15 adults now. And then we all have kids, not all of us, but many of us. So, it's been juggling that.
It's taking time, but that's how Alana and I have seen, we tried intentional community in Costa Rica, and it's kind of if you build it, they'll come, There's a lot of pros on that project for sure, with all due respect. And what we realized though is just again, like you said, this is the nucleus. Our relationships and how we hold them is the nucleus. So it doesn't matter what the location is, how amazing your design is, how beautiful the architecture is, and how cool the vibes are, the feng shui of everything. It's you're gonna walk in the door with your own shit, right? Your own stuff. And we all have it. No one in our group is perfect, but what it's not about being perfect. It's not about pressing each other into this wannabe perfection. It's more about visualizing who we want to be together every day. And that's that culture code. It's our guiding star. These are our principles, so when we're here together and when we're not here together, this is the principles we want to live by authentically, deeply.
Yeah.
I mean, what if what if families did that? What if friends did that? What if 5 couples got together and said, who do we want to be together? How do we want to operate? How do we want to define our community? These are amazing questions that oftentimes when I think about where I'm failing as a father, or feels like I'm failing as a father, a lot of it is my lack of clarity around who we are and what we want, and what are and you so perfectly said, right? These red, yellow, and green lights in our world. I had one of the biggest breakthroughs in my relationship with Tatiana when I wrote out, these are my non-negotiables. These are my preferences. and define the difference between those two. And I realized that in trying to create that document, the reason she was so confused is because I was so confused. So how could she win the game that I didn't even know what I needed, right? So she's there trying to figure out, is this a non-negotiable for him? Is it a preference for him? Where's the boundary? And because I didn't have certainty, I hadn't taken the time to reflect, to think, to write it out, to communicate it. She was struggling, I was struggling, and I kept wanting to point the finger at her like, would you please figure me out? Because I can't figure me out. It's like, that's almost how it felt, right? Would you please know me so I can know me?
Yeah.
Do you remember when we did that early on in our relationship, Joseph, when you were
yeah, we did that to a degree. Yeah.
not written out, but like there was these points where we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? It's like, what do we want from each other? Like there's this really great book called The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel.
Oh yeah.
Ruiz.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you can't accept someone for where they're at, then you might as well not be in a relationship, because you got to accept people for who they are. You can't change anyone. You can only change yourself, and then they might be inspired to change, but you can't expect it. So you have to love them where they are. And I kept being like, man, everything about Joseph, I just love him. I'll accept all his faults because they're not, to me, they weren't bad. And, enough for me to be like, oh, dang, I'm out, or this isn't going to work, or whatever questions would come up. And then we started doing that same thing with our family. I mean, we do like, some people call it democratic parenting, but we do the like, it's more like consent
agreement
parenting.
council.
Agreement council. Yeah, that's what it is. And so we have this council with our kids, especially the older ones, where we come up with all of our agreements. And then we, instead of becoming like dictators or, disciplinarians, we become accountability mentors to our kids. And that had changed the game. And so it's like taking these same questions and then asking, like you said, applying them to your family. Speaking of, I'm going to let you two talk for a second, because our 15-year-old has been like calling and texting like crazy, and now our neighbor is calling. So I think something's going on. So
yep.
I'll be right back.
Of course, go attend to the family. And Joseph, also, while we have a quick pause for a second, is there any way you can zip up your collar there so it doesn't bump the mic? Wondering if that would.
Sorry. Yeah, definitely. I got my fancy mic back at home in Tennessee.
All good, man. Maybe that just, I think it might be that part that was bumping into it.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, all good. This is actually a great time for us to, another good transition moment here, to talk about dads here now, because with all these things that you have going on, you, as any stereotypical entrepreneur would do, is you throw another project on top of it, like, oh, why not start a dads group and help dads who are business guys who want to be better dads. I want to talk about that. And I want to hand you the mic in a second for you to just run with it and tell us why you started it and what's the, why this is so important to you.
Yeah.
And before you do that, I want to acknowledge you that what you have done as a dad is, to me, admirable, remarkable, and honorable. And I just think it's great. Like, what I witness is like pure love from you showing up for another human. And so I just want to reflect that to you. And that's what I see. So in your words, tell us, like, the impetus behind Dads Here Now.
Well, thanks, John. Yeah, thanks for seeing me. Yeah, I see you too, man. And listen to your podcasts. And before I answer that question, just like, I've been admiring what you're doing. And I listen to your podcast more than any other podcast. And just I'm honored and thrilled to be here. So thank you. And thanks for what you do. All right, so the question is, I'm going to actually need that question one more time.
It's okay. And you can answer whatever question you want, by the way, but the question is really, what's the heart behind that? Why? The purpose.
The Dads Here Now?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, man. Because it's critical. It's just like what you say. We're dads with families who run businesses, right? not business dads with families, right? We're family men with businesses. And I got to see myself just really get strung out hard when Alana and we actually operated a business in the Twin Cities for ecological landscape design. So fresh out of Costa Rica, grounded into the suburbs of Minneapolis, we're like craving some earth-natured daily duties, that's what we did every day at the farm. We got paid to be hobby farmers and teach people how to do it. So we put it out there, and it started pretty slow and easygoing, ecological landscape, doing fun designs, tearing out grass, putting in eco havens, and just got more and more and more and more, double down. And I found this like entrepreneurial super drive in me that was grinding on like wearing 4 hats a day and selling deals that just got more and more expensive and making double the money every year. And just like, oh, it's double our gross. Let's double our gross. And so it's until the final year, it was like, all right, we got to be more official. Let's get an office, a bigger office space, and a larger property to work on, and get some more equipment. And meanwhile, Alana was just kind of like, I didn't have to go this fast, but all right, that's what you're feeling. Let's tag along.
And also real quick to add into that, pregnancy, birth, baby in the
We had
middle
a baby
of
during that in the middle of
just growing a child.
running a business, growing a baby, bringing the baby to meet clients. Yeah,
that was the best job we could have had, having a newborn baby, man. She didn't go to daycare once. She's either in the office with Lana designing, she was going out into the field with us and the crew, sitting in the dirt, playing around, or literally at consultations and sales meetings, sitting on me or Alana in a carrier. I think we got a few jobs because of little Karina bird. But I found myself so strung out, John, and I found myself working more and more hours, honestly not even getting paid more. The business was the one sucking up all the money, and all the employees and everything. The vision itself was just kind of swallowing us up. I remember being so just like hyper caffeinated. I'm like driving in between jobs, grabbing food at the gas station, driving in between jobs, and like Alana's like, oh, give me a hug, sweetie, before you go. I'm like, I gotta go. Come on, right? All right, bye. I just, that energy, sacrificed a lot. And I realized by the end of it, it all blew up with the year of 2020. And we just let it go because it wasn't fun anymore. And it didn't feel like it was in our highest good as a couple, as a family. And we let it go. And that's when I was really started diving in. Well, I spent some time doing my own thing, just kind of being a general contractor, and getting us stable again financially through that. And then dreaming up a dad's circle. All I wanted was a dad's circle, and then I was like, and then it turned into maybe a coaching program. And then it turned into the Dads Here Now vision. And I realized that no matter how successful we are, and this, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but it doesn't matter how big the business is or how successful we are or how many clients' lives we're impacting. If our family is suffering every day for it, and we don't trust our kids, and our kids don't trust us, and our wives feel little to no romance when they see us, or I don't have enough time for that, like it gets to be soul sucking, and our kids suffer, and everyone's just trying to stabilize and be happy with toys and money and all the superficial things. And you get a lot of problems. If we're not tending to the family, we're not actually saving the world. I don't care how many suburban lots I'm turning into an eco haven. If grandma can't get her grandkids out there because they're glued to the TV to even see the butterflies, what's it matter? My kid can't even identify half the things we're planting. What's it matter?
Yeah. And I think also you, Joseph, had a lot of reflection around like other people sharing how inspired they were by your parenting style and by how present you were with the family and the kids, even in the midst of all that. Like even though he makes it sound like he was never there, but he was still really present. It's his nature, to do that, to be connected, and not only did we have a baby and toddler, but we had a teenager in the midst of his full-blown rebellion phase. And, he was trying to milk it to be like, oh, look, they're busy, so, but we would still stay present. We'd still like be connecting and making the meetings and doing all the things that we needed to do for the family. But it was just too much. It felt like too much. And so really, I think that showing like Joseph is just such a stunning example of how to be a present parent. He's also very humble, but he's a very great example of like how a man can show up for their kids and wife and life. And so he was also like nudged by me and his community to like take this on, the Dad's Here Now. So he wanted it, but then it was like to take it to the level that it is now was a little bit of a process, because we're like, men need this.
Yes.
Dads need this, kids need this, wives need this.
Yeah, it was, amen. Yeah, it was amazing to like every like business partner or like just mentor, like anyone, tech person to other coaches, like every time I was asking for help and told them what I was doing, they were just like celebrating it with so much energy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, go get it, man, go get it.
Yeah.
So it was hard not to, but it still took like a solid year and a half before things really started kicking into motion. So it's just another inspiring note for any entrepreneur out there listening. Is like, yeah, I had people talk me out of it, try to talk me out of it too. People that wanted my energy at their company. Here's that company truck. Here, we'll get you on a salary ASAP. You should just start selling this thing. Sell this thing now. Here you go. And it was hard. It was like, okay, stable salary. Okay, 9 to 5. Yeah, might be good for the baby. But it's not. It's just going to be soul sucking. So, Alana's been an amazing partner. We've had to have a lot of patience with our ventures, man. As you know, it's like it takes sacrifice to live this lifestyle and live for what you feel like is the highest good and greatest joy. It's not always a financially stable track. So
yeah,
I'm happy that it's finally here, and yeah, we're here. Hello.
You know what I love about the company name, Dad's Here Now, is it speaks to, I love when the title of it speaks to a founding principle of like fatherhood, which is to be present. When I talk to men and I ask like, where's the pain point? So many times it comes back to not being present. Like, I'm at home, I'm there, but I'm not really there. I'm not, I hear that often. And I have felt that so many times. And when I think about where I'm not in a great spot in my relationship, it's mostly because I'm not really in the moment. I'm thinking about something that happened in the past and I'm angry about it. I'm thinking about something in the future and I've got anxiety around it. It's rarely that when I'm in the moment am I having a lot of big problems. If I'm truly connected to the person, I'm the best listener at that moment. I'm great at seeing somebody and acknowledging them and lifting them in that moment. I feel energetically better when I'm just tackling what's in front of me in any given moment. It's like how we work. Like, if we can just prioritize and then just do the most important thing now, then we don't have anxiety at work, because our anxiety comes from having 10 things that we think we should be doing now versus having the one in front of us. So much of our, I want to say the word that comes to me is alignment, which is where we are most effective. It's like Leo Tolstoy's 3 questions, right? Like, who's the most important person? It's like the one that you're with. What's the most important thing to be doing? It's like, what can be done now in front of you? It's all those, the 3 questions come back to connect with and serve and make an impact in this moment with what is in front of you presently, to the best of your.
Yes.
Your kids aren't going to be present with you the whole time. I mean, I'm mourning right now because, our son's off in college, and like you hear like, oh, oh yeah, empty nest and all that, but like it hurts. Like
Yeah.
for me, like especially because he's my oldest. He was my ride or die, like for life. He's been there when he's been through all the transitions, and he's off living his life and doing his thing, and like, yeah, he calls and all that, but like the other day he called Joseph because he was like wanting some good advice on like how to deal with some business things, and he just loves and respects him so much, and I didn't even know what was going on, and like later I found out like, oh, he got a new car. That's cool. Like he got like, he's been stressing with his job, and I'm like talking to Joseph about it because he's the one telling me, because Jonga, his name is Jonga. He's just like loves and trusts him so much.
I
And
love and
so
trust him.
yeah, you do. They have honestly, all the kids have such a great relationship with Joseph, because in the beginning, it's like when you're a biological dad, you just can be like, oh, because I said so. Like, do it because I said so. I'm the boss, But when you're like a stepfather and you have to gain the respect of the kids, you can't do that because they're gonna be like, whatever, you're not my dad. And so
that was glue, John. You asked earlier in the conversation what was the glue. That actually really helped.
with the kids.
Aside from Alana already coming at us with a very democratic parenting style, I was like, I couldn't ever just say because I said so. And no biological father should. I mean, all things practical, if every biological father also stopped saying that, they'd find a lot more success in their life, in their parenting life, and then in their kids' self-esteem and in their kids' engagement with life. And so that stepfatherhood, entering parenthood through the lens of being a stepfather, actually enforced even more communication, even more reflective listening, reflective, talking conversation. So that was a big builder for where my parenting is now.
And
but
Jung is not the kind of kid who's going to be like, oh, okay. He's like a debater. Like he has to sit there and ask every question in every angle and every way in which he can try to get his way. And like, he's smart. So he's like trying to like work it. And we just had to be so patient with it and just be like, okay, I understand. I hear your concern. I hear what you're coming from. Our needs are these. We understand your needs, and like come to these like agreements. And I mean, there were some pretty big times in there that he would push the boundaries as hard as he could to find out where is the boundary. And when he found
the door got broken down.
Yeah, literally. I mean, it was, but he'd find that the boundaries were there, and then he would be like, okay, I established this boundary with my parents, and so because I established these together with them, then I can feel safe in it. And Joseph just kept showing up and just kept being there for him in times of hardship and times of celebration. And the more that he did that, the more he was more admired and loved. I mean, it's because Jonga had his biological daddy knew him, and then he died, and then he had Jason, and he was there with him for a while. But Jason was the more authoritarian parent, like do it because I said so kind of person. And so he was kind of like, no. And so by the time Joseph got there, it was like he just loved being respected, and he loved being seen, and he ate it up. And he so because of that, I mean, there was definitely times in his teenage years where he just didn't want to be around any of us, but for the most part, he did really, I don't know, Joseph, you did such a good job of holding him in all of his different phases.
Thanks, Alana. Thanks. Yeah, we did a good job. I couldn't have done it without you. When I was falling down, you were picking up the reins. When you were falling down, I was picking up the reins. That's why this has worked so long. It's like we've both been furious to the point where we just need to step away, and the other parent's there to hold space.
Mm-hmm.
He threw a party at our house with like 100 kids once, and his mother came home. She couldn't say a word, so I'm like, let's get to cleaning.
Yeah, like one of those those parties that you see in the movies where like the place is trashed, there's beer on the ceiling kind of party. I was livid. I was livid.
You went there.
Yeah. Joseph shows up and he says, well,
guys,
they better soon.
I feel like there could not be a better place to wrap this podcast than with what you two just said about each other and the party story. And the reason that I think that's the most perfect place to wrap this podcast is because what I just saw, what I just heard, what I just felt was, number one, the two of you acknowledging each other, loving, respecting, and showing great communication, which to me is the theme of this show, like love, respect, and communication, because you both embody that so well. But then also I love that we tossed in there this house party too, visual, beer on the ceiling, because it's also important to remember that when we listen to these podcasts and we have these conversations and we drop in with people like you, and, you know, we're just sitting here in the safety of our, air conditioned rooms or heated spaces or painted walls, you got wallpaper behind you, like in these comfortable places, sometimes it's easy to be like, wow, it just sounds like it's perfect for Joseph and Alana all the time. They just complement each other and their kids love them and they love them. And we just go, remember that everybody's going to have a house party moment. And sometimes there's seasons where there's a lot of those moments happening all at once, and so a lot of things coming at you all at the same time. And sometimes it's just messy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you said something, Joseph, that I think is a beautiful close also, which is let's get to cleaning, and
Yeah.
so much of like what's in the business of community is repair. Right. So we'll build something and there's no doubt that it will rust, it will fall apart, it will rot, it will need to be refurbished, it will need to be sanded, painted, rebuilt, restructured, reimagined, and that there is no community that once you've built it, it's done. Like you are always repairing, you are always rebuilding. Like that's part of it. And so I think this is a beautiful place to wrap and say, I honor you too for the journey that you are currently on and will continue to be on. I'll send you lots of love for your eco village that you're building. And at the root of it all is a great modeling example of how you two love, respect, and communicate with each other. So thank you for being here today. Thanks for opening up your hearts and sharing your stories.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jon. Thanks.
So guys, Front Row Dads, if you want to go check out some of the things we talked about today, we'll put all the links that Joseph and Alana will give us in the show notes over at frontrowdads.com under this episode. And you can find it all there. And we'll tell you how to get in touch with Joseph and Alana if you want to ask further questions or dig in even more. But guys, thanks for being here today. Really appreciated this. This was a very enjoyable conversation this morning. So thank you again.
Likewise. Thank you, Jon. Take care.